and check under the bed and make sure there's no Disney executives under there. Oh, those again. Yeah, only this time, it wasn't just me. They were taking all my favorite people and replacing them with diverse women complaining about the patriarchy. You think it's perfectly normal that Carmen is suddenly a black woman?
You probably don't like that Indiana Jones got replaced by a female either, huh? Probably have a problem with black Spider-Man, too.
What would you say to those who are just kind of overly critiquing the film at this point? You've worked so hard on it.
What do you get when South Park, Disney, and a woke princess walk into a bar? Apparently, the most savage takedown of the year.
Excuse me. Your curtain. Please allow me to help.
Help? From you?
I didn't mean to offend. I just thought you should know that you're—
That I should know what? That some privileged white guy thinks his opinion matters? Get over your entitlement. I'm not some damsel in distress waiting for you to ride in on your high horse.
But the primary suffering is being sent in by my company to watch a children's movie as a single man, like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That was the first part that was a little bit weird, but I was basically the only person in the theater.
South Park didn't just mock Rachel Zegler's Snow White, they obliterated her.
Yeah. Weird.
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 No, make it more lame. That is exactly what they're doing. And that is why we hate the diversity, equity, and inclusion casting and writing in movies.
In their latest episode, they portrayed her as a cold, preachy version of the beloved Disney icon, one who lectures woodland animals on feminism, cancels Prince Charming, and turns a childhood fairy tale into a corporate HR seminar.
The last time I had the dream, I was walking down the school hallway. And then I see Butters, and he's like, "Hey, Eric, you want to see what my mom packed me for lunch?" And that's when I start to notice that something's wrong. Everyone I cared about has been systematically replaced. And finally, I want to scream, and I'm like, why are they replacing every single character with someone who is diverse? But then Kenny's like, it's not our fault, it's because of Kathleen Kennedy. But then Kathleen Kennedy says like, make it more lame. And everyone in town is like, no, please, Kathleen Kennedy, stop ruining everything. But Kathleen Kennedy is all like, put another gay diverse woman in it, make it more lame. And the Disney stock just keeps going down and down and down. And then Bob Iger is all like, no, what's going on with my stock? No, Kathleen Kennedy.
It wasn't subtle, it was surgical. And while some fans were howling with laughter, others were shook. This wasn't just a roast, it was a full-on cultural hit job, aimed straight at the heart of Disney's modern princess reboot. Twitter in flames, TikTok in meltdown, YouTube drowning in reaction videos, and at the center of it all, poor Rachel Zegler, who hadn't even gotten to her big premiere yet.
Like, who has been the most exciting person for you tonight?
Oh my God.
Besides, took the words out of my mouth. Besides,
What an idiot I've been as a young person in this industry who has no filter and no idea what she's doing.
This didn't come out of nowhere. Rachel's been stirring the pot for months, and depending on who you ask, she's either a misunderstood visionary or the face of everything wrong with Hollywood's reboots.
This is no ordinary apple, my dear. It's a magic wishing apple. A wishing apple? You offer it to me freely. In place of the patriarchy, you would have a queen! Not white, but diverse, inclusive, and equitable! I will become the leader I know I can be! All shall love me and despair!
Oh, what has she done to you? Fear not. First love's kiss can break any curse.
Back when she was cast, she confidently declared the 1937 Snow White outdated, problematic, and not a story little girls need anymore. Her take? No more damsels, no more romance. This Snow White would be a leader, a fighter, and absolutely not dreaming of true love. But, girl, the internet was not ready. Comment sections exploded. People felt like Rachel wasn't just rewriting a movie, she was erasing nostalgia. And when clips of her interviews went viral, the backlash was immediate and vicious.
Woke? We're talking about ultra-far leftists, people who believe that men and women are a figment of your imagination, that your money is not your own, that your family is not your own, and that your country is not your own. That's what woke means.
Critics accused her of arrogance. Fans called her ungrateful. And Disney, silent, watching from the shadows like an evil stepmother. And here's where I need you to weigh in. Was Rachel being refreshingly honest or totally out of touch with what people want from a Disney princess? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your side of the story before this tea boils over, because by the time South Park got to her, the internet was already on edge, and they just pushed it over the cliff.
A company like Disney so up against it. Why? Because it doubled down on DEI.
In a move that was half boss babe, half barely holding it together, Rachel responded with a TikTok that tried to play it cool. She laughed, calling the South Park roast a rite of passage in Hollywood. Iconic, right? But let's not kid ourselves. This girl is tired. She's been caught in a PR hurricane, and her every breath is being turned into content, commentary, and controversy. And the gag? The movie isn't even out yet. Disney handed her a billion-dollar legacy and a political firestorm and told her to smile through it. She's not just the star of Snow White, she's the symbol of Disney's new era, and that crown is feeling heavy.
A completely spineless, feckless prince buys his swimsuits at Target.
It's helpful to be able to tuck.
And Snow White is Snow Brown. Now, I don't have a problem with the fact that she's brown. I'm just saying everything about this has to be changed when it doesn't really need to be changed.
Here's the real question. Was this episode of South Park a smart cultural critique? Or just mean girl bullying dressed up as satire? Yes, it mocked Disney's woke branding. Yes, it targeted the studio's attempts to modernize legacy, content. But let's be real, Rachel was the face they chose to roast. Her voice, her attitude, her interviews. She became the punchline, whether she signed up for it or not. And now she's trapped in a narrative she can't control. She's being held accountable for corporate messaging, legacy decisions, and decades of cultural tension. And the internet? Eating it up like it's poisoned apple pie. So while everyone else is laughing, Rachel Zegler is watching the world crown her a villain in a story she never wrote.
And there was no tension, there was no drama, there was like nothing in that set. All it was an empty movie.
Just when you thought it couldn't get messier, Ben Shapiro steps onto the battlefield like a knight in conservative armor. And no, he's not here to save the princess. He's here to drag Disney, torch Hollywood, and make Rachel Zegler the poster child for everything he thinks is wrong with modern storytelling. In a fiery, rapid-fire takedown on his podcast, Shapiro didn't just co-sign South Park's roast, he turned it into a full-blown culture war sermon. According to him, Rachel's interviews weren't just awkward PR moments. They were proof that the entertainment industry is infected with anti-traditional values. His words, not mine. And when he called the new Snow White an ideological lecture disguised as a children's movie, his followers, millions of them, ate it up.
So Disney is another company that's been in hot water. They've been in a downward spiral.
Let's be real. Snow White was never meant to be political, but now it's become a lightning rod for both sides of the aisle. On the left, it's a symbol of progress, a woman reclaiming her narrative. On the right, it's a cautionary tale, a beloved story being corrupted by modern ideology. And Ben Shapiro, he's spinning this into gold for his audience. In his version of events, Rachel isn't just a misguided actress. She's Exhibit A in the trial of woke culture. He framed her as arrogant, out of touch, and, in his words, totally unaware of the brand she was chosen to represent. Harsh? Yes, but effective. His comments didn't just echo what South Park said, they amplified it, turning an animated parody into a real-world media hit job.
And then what do you know? They try all this updating. They get this lousy screenwriter, in my estimation, because I saw this thing and it was awful, like really, really, really bad.
Meanwhile, where's Disney in all this? Crickets. Absolute silence. They cast Rachel, hyped her up as a symbol of their new direction, and then disappeared when the backlash got real. No statements, no support, just silence while a 22-year-old actress gets ripped apart by animation, headlines, and high-speed political commentary. And that's where the real damage happens. Because instead of standing behind their star, Disney's absence makes Rachel look like she's out here freelancing for controversy. She's carrying the weight of a massive media empire, while the people who hired her hide in the shadows, hoping the storm passes without hitting their box office. Which brings me to the burning question of this phase, and I need to hear what you think. Is Rachel Zegler being fairly criticized, or was she set up by Disney to take the fall for their risky rebrand? Sound off in the comments. I know this one's gonna divide the room.
When people say woke, what they really mean is they're describing a worldview that hates you. That hates everything America stands for.
This isn't just about Snow White anymore. It's about the clash between nostalgia and reinvention, old values and new narratives. Rachel's caught in the middle of a decades-long identity crisis that Hollywood still hasn't figured out how to resolve. And now with Ben Shapiro in the mix, the conversation isn't just about movies. It's about morality, media, and the meaning of storytelling itself. Is Snow White supposed to evolve with the times, or was it already perfect in its original form? For millions of viewers, this controversy isn't a fluke. It's the beginning of a war over who gets to define culture and who pays the price when things go sideways.
And I think Snow White has become the pinnacle of this. This is going to go down in history as an asterisk next to Rachel Zegler's name, Rachel Zegler.
While the internet was throwing digital tomatoes at Rachel Zegler, Disney was doing what it does best during controversy, hiding behind the velvet curtain. No statements, no defense, no damage control, just radio silence while the studio's billion-dollar remake spiraled into meme-fueled chaos. And girl, silence is a choice. Disney is no stranger to backlash. But this time, it feels different. It's not just about one movie. It's about a slow, steady unraveling of the magic, a once untouchable brand now tripping over its own reboots, recasts, and reactionary headlines. The Snow White drama is just one act in a larger identity crisis that's been brewing behind closed doors. And the scary part? They know it. Internal sources and entertainment analysts have been whispering the same thing for months. Disney is scrambling. Streaming subscriptions are slowing. Box office numbers are underperforming. And the core fans, the nostalgic ones who buy tickets, merch, and passes, are starting to turn away. Not just because of the politics, because the stories don't hit like they used to.
I don't really care about that. What I care about is how she hated the story because it needed to be wokeified, and she hated the fact that there was going to be a Prince Charming of some sort, and they needed to update it.
Disney's dilemma is simple on paper, but brutal in practice. How do you modernize a 1937 fairy tale without alienating the audience that made it a classic? The Snow White remake was supposed to be that answer, a bold new take for a new generation. But the second Rachel Zegler opened her mouth about no prince, no love story, and leadership, not romance, the spell was broken. Suddenly, it didn't feel like Disney was honoring the story. It felt like they were apologizing for it. And let's be honest, there is a conversation to be had about updating outdated tropes. No one wants a helpless princess waiting for a man anymore. But the execution matters. You can evolve the character without throwing her roots under the carriage. Instead, Disney tried to erase the past while selling nostalgia in the same breath. And audiences, they noticed. And here's where it gets messy. Instead of taking the heat themselves, Disney let Rachel carry the narrative. She was the one sent out to do interviews. She was the one asked to explain the vision. She became the spokesperson for a remake she didn't write, produce, or control, which leads to a brutally honest viewer question. And I need you to be real. Should Disney even be remaking these classics if they clearly don't believe in the original messages anymore? Drop your answer in the comments. This one hits at the core of why fans are turning on the mouse. It's not just Snow White. Let's not pretend this is an isolated drama. We've seen the cracks spreading. From the box office bomb of the Marvels, to the lukewarm buzz around The Little Mermaid, to fan fatigue over endless live-action remakes. Each one has faced similar backlash. Too political, too preachy, too disconnected from the magic people actually want. And while some of that criticism is fair, a lot of it is weaponized. Creators like Rachel end up caught in the middle, trying to represent change while holding up a collapsing house of mouse. And the numbers don't lie. Disney's recent earnings calls have been tense. Investor confidence is shaky. Streaming. Growth is slowing down. The Disney magic isn't trending. It's fading. And when South Park parodies you and Ben Shapiro spins that parody into a rallying cry, that's not just bad PR. That's cultural momentum working against you. Let's talk stakes. If Snow White bombs at the box office, it won't just be a bad headline. It could mark the death of the live-action remake era. Disney has dozens of these reboots in the pipeline. But if one of their most iconic IPs crashes and burns, shareholders will panic. Executives will pivot. The golden goose could get grounded. And for actors like Rachel Zegler, that means more than bad press. It's career fallout. Hollywood doesn't always separate the brand from the talent. If the film fails, she gets labeled unlikable. If it succeeds, she still has to navigate the backlash from half the internet. No matter what happens, she loses. And that's the real fairy tale gone wrong. This controversy is forcing Disney, and all of us, to look in the mirror and ask, what is the role of a story today? Is it to comfort, to challenge, to reflect progress, or simply to entertain? Because Snow White wasn't supposed to start a cultural war. She was supposed to sing to birds and get her fairy tale ending. But now, she's become a battlefield. And the future of Disney's identity might hinge on how this story ends. Not long ago, Rachel Zegler was living every theater kid's dream. Discovered as a teenager on YouTube, handpicked by Spielberg for West Side Story, a Golden Globe winner before she was even legal to toast it. She was supposed to be the next big thing. Fresh, talented, charismatic, the future face of a more inclusive Hollywood. But somewhere between red carpets and press junkets, that Cinderella moment shattered. Because as soon as she stepped into the role of Snow White, she stopped. Being a rising actress and became a battleground. Not because of her acting, not because of her talent, but because she said the truth, or at least her truth, about a film that millions of people weren't ready to let go of. The internet didn't just disagree, it declared war. And suddenly, Rachel wasn't the princess anymore. She was the villain in someone else's fairy tale. There's an unspoken rule in Hollywood. Be bold, but not too bold. Be confident, but not too opinionated. Be progressive, but never threaten nostalgia. And when you're a young woman, especially a woman of color, that line gets tighter, sharper, and way more dangerous. Rachel crossed that line the moment she criticized the original Snow White. She didn't say it with malice. She didn't scream or demand boycotts, but even calm, clear words were enough. Because the truth is, a lot of people don't want actresses to be thinkers. They want them to smile, wear the dress, say the lines, and move on. But Rachel, she spoke. And the second she did, the narrative twisted. Suddenly, she was entitled, ungrateful, arrogant. And once that label sticks, especially in the algorithm age, it's almost impossible to scrape off. And I have to ask you this seriously. Do you think Rachel Zegler would have gotten the same backlash if she didn't speak her mind? Tell me in the comments. This isn't just about movies anymore. This is about how we treat women in the spotlight. The thing about fame in 2025, it's not just about box office or talent, it's about how well you survive the internet. Rachel's every move is clipped, analyzed, dissected, and reposted with commentary. One raised eyebrow? She's snarky. A thoughtful pause? She's condescending. TikTok edits of her interview moments are getting millions of views, most of them framed as proof she's out of touch. And the wildest part? Half the people dragging her haven't seen a single one of her films. They're not reacting to Rachel the actress. They're reacting to Rachel the idea, the internet's latest villain in a storyline she didn't ask to be part of. Her TikTok. Clapbacks? Cute. Classy. But they're not enough. The parasocial machine doesn't care about your intentions. It only cares about the clip, the vibe, the viral moment. And right now, Rachel's image is out of her hands. Let's be real. This isn't sustainable for any actress, for any human. Rachel is 22. She's already won major awards, already starred in huge films. But instead of being celebrated, she's fighting for her right to exist without being turned into a meme. That's not celebrity, that's survival. And where's the support? Disney won't defend her. Media won't protect her. Even some of her fellow actors have gone suspiciously quiet because no one wants to touch a flame this hot. Not when the court of public opinion is this unpredictable. Hollywood will keep moving. The PR cycle will reset. But Rachel, she's left picking up the emotional rubble. And what's worse, if Snow White flops, everyone will point fingers at her. Not the marketing, not the studio, her. This is the part no one wants to talk about. What happens to young women in the industry after they're turned into clickbait villains? Because for every star that makes a comeback, there are 5 more who quietly fade, branded by a single moment that won't let them evolve. Careers stall, scripts stop arriving, directors pass, and Rachel knows that. You can see it in her tone, in her eyes, in the way she jokes just a little too hard online. She's playing it cool, but she's bracing for the fallout. And whether you love her or hate her, you can't deny this. She's living proof that in 2025, it's not enough to be talented. You also have to be PR-proof, TikTok-friendly, and controversy immune. And guess what? No one is. This story isn't just about one girl, one movie, or one roast. It's about us, the audience, the ones clicking, watching, reacting, and judging. We shape the narrative more than we realize. So now that you've heard the story, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Rachel Zegler, Snow White, and this insane backlash cycle? Is she a warning sign? Or a woman ahead of her time? Let me know in the comments. And if this video has you deep in your feelings, or deep in your opinions, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because this convo, it's far from over.